Hi, I'm Pat, Center of Innovation and Entrepreneurship here at Centennial College, where I'm an entrepreneur in residence and a happy host to be part of this discussion today again with Petra.
Thank you, Pat. So yes, PK again, and looking forward to picking up this conversation about activist entrepreneurship, of which feminist entrepreneurship is sort of a part of. So take it away. What do you want to know, Pat?
Well, to start with, is it needing to be from day one a change that we want to make, and is it a response to an injustice that we've seen probably in our own lives? Is it systemic or is it personal?
It can be both, but maybe the best way to answer that question is by giving a brief definition and then a few examples.
Great.
And essentially, activist entrepreneurship, and I'm just going to read you the definition offered by Joshua Clark, which actually wrote this book here called From Head Shops to Whole Foods. It is, I think, the only book, recent book, it actually came out 3-4 years ago, on activist entrepreneurship. He's actually a historian, an American historian, academic, who looked at activist businesses from the 60s and 70s and explained sort of the impact that they've had on society and how we've changed since then. And so activist entrepreneurship is not new. And it's been around for a long time and will be around for a long time. So here's the definition. Activist entrepreneurship is a type of entrepreneurship that focuses on using business, or I like the word enterprise, business and enterprise, as a site of activism, resistance, and liberation. So essentially, activist businesses start with a mission and purpose to advance a particular cause, ideological cause, and usually, unlike a social enterprise, which might be to, solve poverty or food scarcity, an activist business normally is promoting an idea. It's really an idea space, and products and services are then created to sort of diffuse and amplify the idea to other people. So let me give you a couple of examples. In the book here, he talks about Black Power bookstores, and also LGBTQ and lesbian bookstores that were once across the United States, and there's still these bookstores around. But their business idea is not just to sell books. Their business idea is to advance awareness, inclusion, provide job opportunities for members of a group that may not be as given as many opportunities as everybody else in society, and sell a message as well. So other examples of activist businesses, I brought here the new Women's Survival Catalog, which is sort of like a version of the Whole Earth Catalog.
Right, yeah.
It goes back to feminist entrepreneurship, but it is all activist businesses, all of these. And you will see in here, and I know you can't really see, I'll maybe put up a few pages, but you'll see health centers, you'll see theater companies, you'll see artist collectives, you'll see, graphics collectives, you'll see, a bunch, as I said before, therapists, you'll see hair and tattoo parlors, all the things, and restaurants as well. Actually, a very famous activist restaurant called Bloodroot has been going for over 50 years. And again, they basically are in business to sell a new idea about how society could work, for the most part. So that's a definition, and I mentioned a couple of examples. I'll mention a few more. Some of you, all of you know, cannabis is now legal in Canada, and that didn't happen by accident. Many head shop owners, and that's why actually this book is called From Head Shops to Whole Foods. Many of the head shop owners and people in business who took on tremendous risk, being arrested, and many were, and their places were closed down for decades and years, to advocate for the safe use of cannabis and to make it not a criminal, not on the criminal drug list.
Right.
And so Jody and Mark Emery are Canadian, and they were at the forefront of this. So really, the reason we have legalized cannabis, whether you're pro or against or whatever, the reason it's here is because for decades, these entrepreneurs tried to socialize the idea and educated their customers on cannabis,
right,
and their political views on it. So that's an example of an activist enterprise, and actually an industry in that case, that really had a significant impact on our collective attitudes towards cannabis use and how its use should be, dealt with, et cetera,
right.
et cetera, et cetera.
And we're going to obviously see a lot of benefits to the health system now that is available and legal to everybody. So it is thankful that that's there. But the idea from that one is they're on the edge of legality, but are all activist entrepreneurs necessarily in that way, or are there some that are not as controversial?
Yes,
but
of
still
course.
activist.
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many of them. Let me see where to start. Well, I'll mention a Toronto restaurant called Highwire, and it's got started, and its activist message was that Palestinians and Israelis could work together. It's owned and operated by folks from Palestine and Israel, and of course they started long before the war happened.
Right.
To spread that message. Other examples of activist businesses include there was an Anarchy Cafe.
Yep.
And the way that cafe priced its products and made it your choice to pay what you wanted to pay, and had anarchist libraries and anarchist talks and all of those things, is an example of an activist business trying to promote an idea. And if you look around, we also want to think that activist businesses are not just for-profit, sort of traditional storefront businesses.
Mm-hmm.
They can be nonprofits. They can be entire movements. So even Pause AI, which is a AI moratorium movement, which was actually founded by a tech person, not a tech leader or billionaire, just an average tech guy in the Netherlands, who became concerned about the impact of AI on humanity, and started Pause AI, and now that he has, I believe it's 30 chapters around the world, and it is an enterprise, and they raise money. There's a commerce model to it, mostly donations, and they get research money and things like that to operate, but there's an example of a business, and I just want to say, we always say business as though that's the only word. I prefer enterprise because an enterprise can be so many different things, and to me a business is one way of being an enterprise.
Right.
So just want to clarify that. But there are many of them. They tend to be selling an idea, and it actually talks to the role of entrepreneurship in our society. So maybe I'll just talk about that for a moment.
Yeah.
So most people think the role of entrepreneurs in society is basically to invent new products and services and bring them to the public and the world. Therefore, if you want to get Schumpeterian about it, the old industries grow and stop growing, and then there's some new invention or technology, and all the entrepreneurs are the first ones to take it up and are the first ones to basically socialize it across the world, right? And so our role is a little bit like being the bees in a pollinating thing. We see the pollen, which is the new idea, and then we go and build businesses and spread it all around.
Fast followers in a way.
Yeah, fast followers. Yeah, exactly. And that is indeed our role in society primarily, but it's not just about business. It's also about ideas and ways to make our world better. And so being in as Kelly Diels calls it, a culture maker, where the business is secondary, the idea is primary, is a lot of what you see activist entrepreneurship being all about. And I'll just mention one last example. There's a social justice ice cream company in Chicago, and so their whole activist message is around anti-capitalism, and so the ice cream business is really just a way of getting their message across. So even all the names for their ice cream involve the Marxist scoop or that kind of thing.
Right.
So They're really selling an idea and through product or service.
I'll riff on Chicago and food for a minute, which made me think of a restaurant that I was at the last time I was there, and they talked about using the proceeds from their restaurant to build community gardens at public schools, and they had a commitment to the school board there that they would build and maintain for 3 years community gardens on public school grounds, and that was the drive for people to be part of that business. Now maybe some of the chefs wanted to have the farm to table aspect of it, but they still got to know that they were participating in a business that was intentionally making some change in the communities that could benefit from the help.
Amazing. Yeah, a great example, and I'll even mention one more is the Women's March, which started, the first one was 2007, January 22nd, 2017, I believe, and it started as a grassroots movement, but today it's incorporated as a 501c.
Yep.
And so it's a business now, and they run all kinds of, they're kind of like a collective organizing body for all kinds of protest actions and news and things like that. So it's an example of how something can grow from a grassroots origin by a spark, in that case an election, that has now grown to a very large enterprise.
Right.
In the U.S. So, yeah, and I wanted to mention too, I have a couple of books here.
Yeah.
And this particular one, The Future of the Arab Spring, Civic Entrepreneurship in Politics, Art, and Technology Startups. This was based on an academic paper that looked at the Arab Spring and specifically looked at the role of entrepreneurs and small businesses in helping build the foundation for the Arab Spring Revolution to happen. So it's one of the only studies I've seen that is this recent that actually gives credit to entrepreneurs for being part and supporting a revolution that that was by many folks deemed to be really necessary to take place. So yeah, businesses can be activists as well, or business is a form of, can be, it isn't for everybody, but can be a form of activism and site of resistance. I wanted to, I think those are the main things I wanted to mention for this segment, Pat.
Maybe a couple other examples that I can think of are from, we see Shorefast Foundation out on the East Coast, far away, as Zita Cobb, the founder of Shorefast, would describe it as, and thinking about using the power of enterprise and the power of place to help a whole community that was facing a collapse of its economic engine. The fishery industry collapsed. There were people who are 10th generation Fogo Islanders that didn't know a different way of life, and instead of relocating, as many had done in decades previous in the other collapse, Zita Cobb and the community of Fogo Island found a way to support sustainable tourism and local artisans, and essentially housed in Fogo Island Inn and it support businesses around it, and the economic nutrition label that came out of that. That to me feels like a pretty good example as well. That from the onset was intentionally looking to transform the economics of a place.
Yeah, a great example. Another really good example.
And then the other one that comes up for me often that I'm inspired by in different ways is Patagonia. And we know from their long-standing foundation that they'd supported many hundreds of small businesses and not-for-profits, and then as the big government was giving rebates to big business, they used that money instead of putting it in their pockets, to realize that if some of this is a trade-off and public lands are being sold off and mined or exploited, how might they use that benefit to, in fact, even raise some awareness and some legal action against the government at that time to try and slow down using the parks. And then forward it a little bit further, I think that's one of the only businesses I can think of at scale, a $1 billion business, where they've gifted it in its entirety to a not-for-profit, claiming that the Earth is the only shareholder now for the Patagonia, and that's generous of the founder to do that. But I gotta think that that is not just a one-time thing. There's likely hoping there is to be a kickstart, just as when Patagonia helped create the 1% for the planet, or they were an early B Corp. They're hoping that it's going to kickstart that kind of movement. Do you think that might actually happen?
Well, I have to be honest.
Yes.
I have to be honest. There are always outliers and special cases. And there's always hope that when those outliers and special cases in corporate worlds, in business, are wonderful, that it will somehow spill over into the main bloodstream of the whole system. But I think we know now that after 100 years of social enterprise, the idea of environmental corporations, social enterprises, feminist enterprise, all this stuff is not new, and here we are. And so in my view, Pat, I don't think businesses lead change or actually can sustain change, because the market sometimes punishes them for it. I think the only people that can, or the only thing that can really drive change are people.
Right.
And I mean people not in service of work. We all work, but we're more than that.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, if we can't rely on companies to lead, in my humble opinion, and we've seen huge examples of even some leaders, we'll take We Charity, for example, even some leaders that we thought, wow, this is really great, and then succumb to what I would call the forces of capitalism in one way or another. So I do not think business can lead the kind of change we're looking for. Only people can. But we can encourage businesses to do better, and we can reward the ones that really stand out and do business differently.
So vote with our dollars, support the businesses that have the values that resonate with us. Do you see a spike in more activist entrepreneurs happening in the last decade, and what type of trends do they have for succeeding?
I think there's a lot more interest. What I'm seeing in my world anyways is a lot more folks coming to the fore and saying, I want to make I want to have a social enterprise, but how can I really make a difference? Because right now what's driving a lot of our pain is politics. Right. And so people are coming to ask, it's like, okay, well, yeah, we care about poverty, we care about affordable housing, and that's all things are political. But people are also wondering, how can I prevent the rollback of rights? How can I make sure, DEI continues to move forward and we learn how to implement it better instead of being thrown out? So there's many ways, again, on that continuum, right? Reform, revolution, and so on. But I also think there's a level of impatience. And I think people are saying, how can I build a business that really has a more revolutionary edge to it than a reform edge? I am seeing that. And the second part of your question was? Success rates. Success rates.
More successful, less successful?
Okay. So there has been some studies done, and we'll put the citation in the notes, but that shows that activists and social enterprises, activist businesses, have about the same failure rate as regular businesses do. And most of you know that, according to Stats Canada anyways, which basically measures whether or not you deregister a business,
Right.
The failure rates for startups is very high, 80% or something like that.
After 2 years is the mark?
I think
or is
2
it 3
years. I think it's 2. We can double check on that and put that in the show notes too. But it's no different. So you have to be smart about running a business. And just as there are successful activist businesses, Whole Foods being one of them, right now I don't think it's an activist business anymore.
Right.
But at the time, Whole Foods was a company started that came out of the organic and local foods movement.
Right.
In the 70s. They can, and now, they became a publicly listed large corporation, and the founder did make a lot of money out of it. So back to your earlier question.
Then they were acquired.
Then they were acquired, and then bad things, I'll call it this way. You can just dismiss that as Petra's ranting, but, capitalism got in there again in a more serious way and flipped the priorities around. So, but they can be that's an example of a very successful activist business that just started. And actually there are other ones of a large note.
Well, let's park it there for now, and if you've got a question, a query, a conundrum, a kerfuffle, quagmire, put it in the chat, because this is an ongoing series of workshops that we're doing. We're lucky to have PK back for a second time as a follow-up to that first one, so thank you for everybody who participated and asked questions. It does have us iterating on the content that we'll bring to future workshops. So put them in the chat. I'll be happy to address them, be in touch with them, and or use them to help inform the programming for our next semester.
And if you do want to talk to me or enlighten me or have anything to share, I would love that and welcome it. So my email's in the chat as well, and it's
very
also
generous.
available.
All right. Well, that's it for this week.
Bye.
See, the lights are turning and I look outside. The stars are burning through this changing time. It could have been anything we want is fine. Salvation was just a passing thought. It was just a passing thought.